In a distant corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling centers of power, a small blue planet spun silently in the vastness of space. This planet, called Earth, had been overlooked for centuries by the advanced alien species that ruled the stars. The Xothar, a race known for their immense power and advanced technology, had never paid much attention to Earth. To them, it was just another insignificant world with primitive life forms, nothing special. But that changed when a group of Xothar explorers was sent on a routine mission to study the galaxy's lesser-known planets. Their orders were simple: scan the planet, gather information, and move on. What they discovered, however, would alter the course of the galaxy forever. When the Xothar first arrived on Earth, they did not expect to find much. Their sensors showed a planet filled with life forms that seemed weak and unremarkable. The humans, small in comparison to the Xothar, appeared primitive. Yet, as the explorers began their investigations, they found something strange. Humans, though they seemed fragile and vulnerable, were incredibly resilient. They could withstand extreme environments, survive injuries that would incapacitate any other species, and recover from wounds at a rate that amazed the Xothar. This was not the discovery they had anticipated. The humans were more than they had first seemed. The leader of the Xothar team, Commander Rax, was the first to notice the anomaly. During a routine mission to collect samples from a human city, one of the Xothar soldiers was injured in an unexpected encounter. A human, barely taller than the average Xothar, had attacked, using nothing but his bare hands. The soldier, who was trained in advanced combat and armed with the latest weapons, was caught off guard. The human not only survived the attack, but managed to escape, leaving the Xothar soldier bruised and stunned. Rax couldn't believe what he had witnessed. How could a simple human, no different from the others in appearance, have this kind of strength? The human's pain tolerance, the speed at which he reacted, and the power in his blows were all far beyond what they had expected. The team quickly analyzed the incident. They reviewed the human's biology and behavior, comparing it to the many species they had studied before. The results were perplexing. Humans were unlike any other species in the galaxy. Their bodies could heal in ways that defied explanation. Their muscles were more dense, their bones stronger, and their endurance unmatched. It was as if they were designed to survive in the harshest conditions. Rax's curiosity grew. He needed to learn more. This discovery could change everything. The Xothar were known for their powerful technology, but the humans had something that could not be easily explained or replicated: raw, unyielding strength. As the Xothar continued their observations, they found more evidence of humanity's strange abilities. A human was able to carry a heavy load for days without tiring, while another could swim in waters so cold that it would freeze other species within minutes. They could survive extreme heat, walk for miles without food or water, and even perform feats of physical strength that left the Xothar in awe. It was not just one human, but many. Everywhere they looked, they found examples of this unusual resilience. The more the Xothar studied, the more they realized that this was no accident. There was something deliberate in the design of human biology. The Xothar's scientific team began to theorize. Could the humans have been engineered? Were they the product of some ancient race's experiments? The idea seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. Rax called for a full-scale investigation into humanity's origins. He ordered his team to search for any traces of alien influence on Earth. Perhaps some long-lost civilization had left their mark on the humans, altering their genetic makeup. The Xothar, having encountered many races and ancient ruins throughout the galaxy, knew how dangerous it could be to ignore the power of an ancient species. If humans were, in fact, the result of such a design, they could hold the key to untold power. As they delved deeper into their research, the Xothar began to realize that humanity was not simply a weak, primitive species. They were stronger, faster, and more resilient than they had ever imagined. The discovery of humans had sparked a sense of fear within the Xothar, something they had not felt in centuries. The universe had always been their domain. They had ruled over countless planets and civilizations, their technology far outpacing any other species. But this was something entirely different. Humans were not to be underestimated. Rax and his team knew that if they wanted to control the galaxy, they would have to deal with these giants in ways they had never considered before. However, as Rax pondered this discovery, something else occurred to him. What if the humans weren't just strong, but also intelligent enough to pose a greater threat than their physical power alone? If they could harness their strength, they could become an unstoppable force, capable of challenging the Xothar's rule over the galaxy. Rax realized that the time had come to make a decision. The Xothar could either ignore this discovery and risk facing a growing threat, or they could take immediate action to ensure humanity would not rise against them. The idea of letting these seemingly weak creatures continue to grow in power sent a chill down Rax's spine. In the quiet of their command center, the Xothar leaders debated their next steps. The decision was made. They would not wait for the humans to grow stronger. They would invade Earth and take control before the humans realized the full extent of their potential. They would study them, harness their strength, and use them to further their own dominance in the galaxy. The humans would not be left to grow unchecked. The Xothar were determined to find out what made them so unique, and whether they could exploit that strength for themselves. Yet, as they prepared for their invasion, a sense of unease spread throughout the ranks. The Xothar had never encountered anything like this before. They were used to controlling weaker species, bending them to their will. But the humans were different. They weren't just creatures to be conquered. There was something about them that made the Xothar question everything they thought they knew about power. Could the Xothar truly defeat an entire species that, until now, had been seen as insignificant? Or had they underestimated humanity's true strength? And so, as the Xothar set their plans in motion, they did so with one thought constantly on their minds. They had just uncovered a power far greater than they had ever imagined, and the galaxy would soon find out what that power could do. The Xothar invasion force arrived on Earth without warning. Their massive warships pierced the sky like jagged shadows, blotting out the sun and sending waves of panic across the globe. For weeks, people had been seeing strange flashes in the sky, bright lights that seemed unnatural, followed by the unmistakable sound of something massive crashing down into the Earth's atmosphere. News channels scrambled to make sense of the phenomenon, but nothing could have prepared humanity for what came next. The Xothar were here, and they were ready for war. It all happened so fast, too fast for most to react. Cities were decimated in the blink of an eye as Xothar ships unleashed their devastating firepower, turning everything in their path to rubble. Their technology was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. But even with their superior weaponry, they hadn't counted on the strength of the humans they were about to face. As the Xothar descended, they did not expect to encounter any real resistance. They had scanned the planet, studied the humans from afar, and saw them as nothing more than weak, primitive creatures. The initial assault was meant to be a show of force, a way to crush the humans before they even had a chance to fight back. Yet, as the Xothar made landfall, something unexpected happened. Instead of cowering in fear or surrendering, the humans fought back with a fury that shook the invaders to their core. It began with small groups of civilians, ordinary people, many of whom had never held a weapon in their lives, rushing to defend their homes and families. They fought with desperation, but more than that, they fought with a strength that seemed unnatural. In one city, a man, no taller than average, picked up a fallen piece of debris, a metal beam, twisted and broken, and swung it like a hammer, smashing through the armor of an advancing Xothar soldier. The soldier, equipped with the finest technology and advanced body armor, was knocked off his feet, stunned and disoriented. How could this weak human have the strength to do this? The Xothar soldiers, who had never encountered anything like it, hesitated for just a moment. That hesitation was enough. Commander Rax, leading the Xothar invasion, watched the chaos unfold from his command ship. His initial confidence began to waver as he saw his forces struggle to control the humans. He had expected a swift victory. Instead, he found himself facing a battle that seemed to grow fiercer by the hour. The humans' resilience was astounding. The Xothar, known for their ability to crush entire civilizations, were suddenly finding themselves locked in combat with a species that refused to yield. They could not explain it. How were these humans, these seemingly weak, fragile creatures, able to put up such a fight? Rax ordered his soldiers to intensify the assault, but the humans were relentless. They adapted quickly. As the battle raged on, a small group of human soldiers, elite warriors who had been trained for this very moment, moved in the shadows, gathering intelligence on the enemy's movements. They had seen the way that Xothar fought and realized something strange. That Xothar, despite their advanced technology, were not invincible. They relied heavily on their machines and weapons, but their soldiers were not as adaptable as humans. The humans were more agile, more resourceful. Where the Xothar had to plan every move carefully, the humans reacted quickly, using their instincts and strength to exploit the smallest weaknesses. One human soldier, a woman named Captain Elena Ruiz, led a team of specialists into the heart of the Xothar's command center. They knew the enemy's defenses would be strong, but they also knew that the key to victory lay in disrupting the Xothar's communication lines. They moved with precision, taking down sentries silently, until they reached the control room. Inside, the Xothar commanders were too busy watching the battle unfold to notice the human intruders. The humans worked quickly, planting explosives that would disable the Xothar's main communications network. As they retreated, a small but significant victory was achieved. The Xothar were no longer able to communicate effectively, and their coordination faltered. Meanwhile, on the ground, the humans continued to fight back. The Xothar began to realize that their strategy of overwhelming the humans with firepower was not working. The more they attacked, the more the humans seemed to grow in strength. It was as if they were being fueled by something deeper, something beyond just survival. Rax's concern grew as he saw human soldiers working together in ways that showed incredible coordination and unity. The humans were not only resilient, they were resourceful. They were learning fast, adapting to the Xothar's tactics, and finding ways to turn the tables. In one battle, a group of human civilians, using nothing but makeshift weapons, managed to infiltrate an Xothar camp. They disabled one of the Xothar's most powerful machines, a war vehicle capable of leveling entire cities, and used it against them. The Xothar soldiers, armed with laser rifles and energy shields, were no match for the humans' ingenuity. Commander Rax knew the battle was slipping out of his control. Every time that Xothar made a move, the humans seemed to respond in kind. There was no way to predict what they would do next. He had underestimated them, and now his forces were paying the price. His own soldiers, though technologically superior, were starting to show signs of fatigue. The humans, on the other hand, seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. Rax knew that they could not keep up this assault forever. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something more. They were fighting for their homes, for their families, for the very future of their species. And that kind of resolve was not something that Xothar could easily crush. As the day turned to night, Rax stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the battle unfold. The humans, despite their initial shock, had rallied. Their resistance was growing stronger by the minute. Rax realized that the true strength of humanity was not just in their physical abilities or their technology. It was in their spirit. This was not a fight they were willing to lose. That Xothar had underestimated them, but now, the tides of war were beginning to shift. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and Rax knew that the outcome was far from certain. The humans were no longer just a threat. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the human resistance grew stronger, the Xothar found themselves scrambling to adjust their strategy. Commander Rax, still reeling from the unexpected strength of humanity, ordered his forces to fall back temporarily. Something was happening, something he didn't fully understand. Despite their advanced technology and superior firepower, they couldn't break the human will to fight. It was as if the humans were driven by a force that the Xothar couldn't see or predict. As his troops regrouped, Rax decided to search for answers. What was it about the humans that made them so difficult to conquer? There had to be something more than just their physical resilience and surprising combat tactics. It was time to uncover the truth. In the midst of the chaos, an unlikely figure emerged from the human ranks. Dr. Celine Grant, a scientist with a deep knowledge of ancient human history. Her mind, sharp and curious, had already begun piecing together the puzzle of why humanity was so different. She had spent years studying the Xothar, even before the invasion, and had uncovered an ancient legend. There was a myth among human cultures, a story passed down through generations about a hidden power within the human race, a power that could be awakened. As the battle continued, Dr. Grant found herself working with the best minds the human resistance had to offer. Together, they discovered something strange. Among the wreckage left by the Xothar ships, they found a series of ancient symbols etched into the earth, symbols that seemed oddly familiar. The markings didn't make sense at first, but as Dr. Grant studied them, she began to realize they were not random. They were a map that led to something hidden deep beneath the surface of Earth. It was a place that had been sealed away for thousands of years, long before humanity ever thought to venture into the stars. Dr. Grant shared her findings with the resistance leadership, but not everyone was convinced. Some believed it was a waste of time, while others thought it might be a trap set by the Xothar. But the more Dr. Grant explained, the more the resistance leaders understood that the mystery couldn't be ignored. This could be the key to understanding the true strength of humanity. Dr. Grant led a small team on a dangerous mission to uncover the truth. Armed with only a few resources, they traveled to the location indicated by the symbols, an ancient underground chamber that had been hidden away for centuries. As they descended into the earth, the air grew thick with tension. No one knew what they would find, but everyone could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. The deeper they went, the more the walls seemed to hum with a strange energy. It was as if the very ground itself was alive, breathing with a purpose. The further they ventured, the more convinced Dr. Grant became that they were on the verge of discovering something monumental. When they finally reached the chamber, what they found inside was beyond anything they had imagined. The room was vast, filled with strange machinery that appeared to be ancient, yet incredibly advanced. The walls were lined with more symbols, glowing faintly as if they were alive, guiding the team forward. At the center of the room stood a large stone pedestal, upon which rested a small, intricately carved object. Dr. Grant stepped forward, her heart racing. This was it, the key to the mystery of humanity's true strength. She reached out and carefully lifted the object, a small glowing crystal. The moment she touched it, the room seemed to come alive. A powerful energy surged through her, and she felt a connection to something far greater than herself. The crystal pulsed with a strange force, and Dr. Grant suddenly understood. This was no ordinary artifact. It was a relic of humanity's past, something far more powerful than anyone had realized. This crystal, she realized, was not just a symbol. It was the source of humanity's hidden potential, the very thing that had allowed them to rise up in the face of impossible odds. As Dr. Grant examined the crystal, a voice echoed in her mind. It was faint, but it was unmistakable. It wasn't a voice she had ever heard before, but somehow it felt familiar. The voice spoke of an ancient race, one that had lived long before the Xothar ever arrived on Earth. This race had once lived alongside humanity, sharing knowledge and technology. But when disaster struck, they had disappeared. Before they left, however, they had hidden the crystal away, knowing that one day humanity would need its power. The crystal was a key to unlocking the latent potential within every human being. It wasn't just physical strength or resilience. It was something deeper. The crystal connected every human on a genetic level, allowing them to tap into a well of untapped power when the need arose. But the crystal's power came with a price. It could only be activated by a human willing to sacrifice everything. A chosen individual, someone who could wield its power without losing themselves to it. Dr. Grant realized that the battle they were fighting against the Xothar was only the beginning. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was about to face a challenge that would test them like never before. They had the potential to defeat the Xothar, yes, but they would need someone to step forward and embrace the power of the crystal, a person who could carry the weight of this ancient gift. As Dr. Grant and her team prepared to leave the chamber, the ground suddenly shook. The Xothar, sensing that something had been uncovered, were closing in fast. The resistance had no time to waste. They had to act now. Dr. Grant handed the crystal to Captain Alina Ruse, who had been by her side throughout the journey. Alina's eyes widened as she took hold of the glowing stone. She could feel its power surging through her, a wave of energy like nothing she had ever experienced. She knew, without a doubt, that she was the one who had been chosen. Outside, the Xothar forces were advancing. The battle was about to take a dramatic turn, but Alina was ready. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was the key to unlocking humanity's true potential. With the crystal in her hand, she would lead the charge against the Xothar, and, in doing so, unlock the ancient power that had been hidden away for millennia. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders, and she was ready to embrace her destiny. The moment Captain Alina Ruiz took the crystal, everything changed. The air around her crackled with energy, as if the very atmosphere had become charged with a force beyond comprehension. Alina could feel the pulse of the crystal deep within her, its power surging through her body. It wasn't just the power to fight. It was something deeper, something that connected her to every human on Earth. As she gripped the glowing artifact, a flood of ancient knowledge poured into her mind, visions of forgotten civilizations, wars fought across the stars, and the rise and fall of empires long lost to time. The crystal was a gateway, a bridge to an immense power humanity had long forgotten. With the crystal in hand, Alina knew she wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was something far more significant. But with that realization came a heavy burden. The ancient force within the crystal whispered secrets that no one was meant to hear, not even her. It was a power so immense that it threatened to consume anyone who dared to wield it. But Alina was determined. She understood that humanity's survival depended on her ability to control it. If she failed, everything they had fought for, their freedom, their future, would be lost. The Xothar were not far behind. They had sensed the disturbance, the shift in the balance of power. Commander Rax, the Xothar leader, had no idea what the humans had discovered, but he could feel the change in the air. His forces, previously confident in their ability to crush humanity, were now in disarray. Something had shifted. The humans were no longer just resisting. They were evolving, and that terrified him. For the first time, Rax questioned the superiority of his race. What if the humans had discovered something that could turn the tide of the war? What if they had found the key to defeating the Xothar once and for all? Back at the human base, Alina stood before her comrades, the resistance leaders who had once doubted the crystal's significance. Now their doubts had turned to awe. Alina's eyes shone with an intensity that was both foreign and familiar. She spoke with confidence, her voice steady despite the overwhelming weight of what she had discovered. "We have the power to end this war," she said, her words ringing with an authority that sent shivers down everyone's spine. "But we need to move quickly. The Xothar are coming, and they won't stop until they've destroyed us all. We must use what we've uncovered, or we'll be lost." Her words sparked a fire in the hearts of the resistance. They had always believed in their cause, but now they had something more. A purpose, a weapon, a chance to finally defeat their invaders. The crystal was more than just a symbol. It was the catalyst for their victory. But Alina knew that it would take more than just the crystal. The power within it was too great for any one person to control alone. They needed to harness it, to understand it fully. and that meant they needed time. Time was something they didn't have. The Xothar were closing in, their massive warships blotting out the sky as they descended toward Earth. The battle was coming to a head, and the fate of humanity would be decided in the next few hours. Elena knew that the key to victory lay in unlocking the full potential of the crystal. But to do that, they needed to find a way to tap into its energy without losing control. It was a delicate balance. Too much power, and they risked destruction. Too little, and they would be doomed to fight a war they could never win. As the clock ticked down, Elena turned to Dr. Celine Grant, who had been working tirelessly to decipher the mysteries of the crystal. Together, they pored over ancient texts, studying every symbol, every clue, searching for answers. The pressure was mounting, but Dr. Grant remained calm, her intellect sharp as ever. She had always believed in the strength of humanity, but now, more than ever, she realized how much was at stake. If they couldn't unlock the crystal's power in time, the Xothar would overrun them. But if they succeeded, they could reshape the entire course of the war. Elena stood at the center of the resistance base, surrounded by her team, ready to make the ultimate decision. The crystal pulsed in her hand, its light intensifying as if responding to her. Weight of her responsibility pressed down on her, but she knew that she couldn't turn back. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. With a deep breath, Elena stepped forward. The resistance had already made their choice. It would take the fight to the Xothar. But they needed one final piece to ensure victory. Elena would be that piece. She would wield the crystal's power and lead the charge. It was a risky move, but the only option they had left. The attack began just as the Xothar forces landed on Earth's surface. A massive battle raged, with explosions lighting up the sky and gunfire echoing through the air. Elena, now fully connected to the power of the crystal, led the charge. Her body moved with inhuman speed, her senses heightened beyond anything she had ever experienced. She could see the battlefield with perfect clarity, every movement of the Xothar forces, every shift in their strategy. With a thought, she could unleash devastating waves of energy, ripping through the enemy ranks. The humans fought with a ferocity they had never shown before, their weapons enhanced by the power of the crystal. But despite the overwhelming force the humans now commanded, the Xothar were not easily defeated. Their forces fought back with all their might, their ships launching relentless barrages of firepower. Elena could feel the strain of the battle taking its toll on her, the crystal's power threatening to consume her. The energy was too much for any one person to bear for long, and she knew she couldn't hold out much longer. But as the battle raged on, she refused to give up. She would push through, no matter the cost. In the final moments of the battle, as the Xothar forces seemed on the verge of overwhelming the humans, Elena made the ultimate sacrifice. With a final surge of energy, she unleashed the full power of the crystal, sending a shockwave through the Xothar ranks. The explosion was immense, a blinding flash of light that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. The Xothar forces were thrown into disarray, their ships and soldiers scattered in the wake of the blast. And in that moment, the tide of the war turned. The Xothar were defeated, their forces broken, and humanity had emerged victorious. But at what cost? Elena lay unconscious, her body drained by the immense power she had wielded. The crystal had fulfilled its purpose, but it had taken everything from her. The turning point had come, but it had been a turning point that would change everything. Humanity had won, but at a price they would never forget. The Earth had changed. The battle for survival had reached its climax, and there was no going back. The resistance had won, but the cost was immense. The Xothar forces were broken, their leaders defeated, and their invasion thwarted. But there was still one final challenge that loomed ahead. The Xothar's most powerful weapon, a force so terrifying that no one on Earth had ever seen anything like it. And at its helm was Commander Rax, the Xothar leader, whose hunger for power was matched only by his determination to destroy humanity. He had been beaten, but he was far from finished. And now, with his final weapon activated, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Captain Alina Ruiz stood at the front lines, her body scarred from the brutal battle, her mind still reeling from the power of the crystal. The crystal that had given humanity a fighting chance, the same crystal that had drained her strength, was now the key to their victory. But Alina was not the only one who could feel the crystal's overwhelming power. The Xothar had sensed it too. Rax had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the humans to think they had won. Now, with his weapon ready, he would destroy everything they had fought for. The skies above Earth darkened as the Xothar's final weapon descended from the heavens. It was a massive ship, more powerful than anything the humans had ever seen. Its surface gleamed with a dark, metallic sheen, its weapons far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. Rax's voice boomed through the comms, cold and full of malice. "This is the end for you, humans. Your resistance has been a temporary inconvenience. Now I will finish what I started." Alina stood, her hand gripping the crystal tightly, as she looked up at the approaching weapon. She could feel its power, its darkness, radiating from it. It was a force unlike anything she had ever encountered, and for a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could they really win this time? Could the crystal, with all its power, truly defeat the Xothar's ultimate weapon? The resistance soldiers around her were ready for battle, but they too could feel the weight of the moment. The odds were stacked against them. The final showdown was upon them. But Alina's resolve was unwavering. She had faced death before, and she had seen the depths of the Xothar's cruelty. This time, it was different. The crystal was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's will to survive. It had already given them a fighting chance, and Alina knew they had to use it to its fullest potential. With the crystal's power flowing through her, she stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. "We fight for Earth, for every life we've lost, and for those who still stand with us. We will not be defeated." Her words spread like wildfire through the ranks of the resistance. They were ready. They had come so far, and now they would give everything they had to ensure humanity's survival. As the Xothar weapon closed in, the first shots were fired. The ground shook beneath them as explosions rang out, sending debris flying through the air. But the humans stood their ground. They had the crystal. They had the power to fight back. The battle was far from over, but the first blow had been struck. The Xothar weapon unleashed a barrage of laser fire, decimating everything in its path. Ships were torn apart, and soldiers were scattered. But the resistance didn't falter. Alina, empowered by the crystal, moved with incredible speed and precision, her every move in sync with the energy pulsing through her. She could feel the crystal's power amplifying her every thought, every action. It was as if she had become one with it, and it with her. With a wave of her hand, a shockwave of energy surged from the crystal, rippling through the battlefield and hitting the Xothar weapon with an explosion of light. For a moment, it seemed as though the weapon might fall, but Commander Rax was not one to be easily defeated. He retaliated with a blast so powerful it sent Alina sprawling to the ground. Her connection to the crystal briefly severed. Pain surged through her body as she struggled to stand, but she couldn't give up. Not now. She had to get back up. She had to finish this. The resistance pressed on, though their numbers were dwindling. They fought with all their might, but the Xothar were relentless. The ship's weapons were overwhelming, and the humans were being pushed back. Alina knew that they couldn't win by fighting with strength alone. They had to outsmart Rax, to use the crystal's power in ways that even he couldn't anticipate. The answer came to her in a flash, a way to turn the tide, to destroy the weapon and the Xothar's hope for domination. With a final surge of energy, Alina reached out to the crystal, her mind connecting to its full potential. She felt the raw force of its power coursing through her, filling her with an energy so intense it seemed to burn through her very soul. She could see everything: the battlefield, Rax's movements, the weapon's weaknesses, all laid out before her, and with that knowledge, she acted. She sent a pulse of energy from the crystal, aimed directly at the heart of the Xothar weapon. The ground trembled as the blast struck, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, with a deafening explosion, the weapon's core shattered. The shockwave sent the Xothar forces into chaos, their ships spiraling out of control, their soldiers scattering. The humans had won, but it wasn't just the weapon that was destroyed. It was the Xothar's will to fight. Their empire had crumbled, their greatest asset destroyed in a single final blow. As the dust settled, Elena stood amidst the wreckage, her body weary, her mind exhausted. The resistance had won, but the cost had been high. So many had given their lives for this moment, and though they had achieved victory, the scars of war would remain. The crystal's power had saved them, but it had come at a great price. Elena could feel it draining from her, the power fading away. She had given everything she had. And now, there was nothing left. But humanity had survived. They had proven that no matter the odds, no matter the challenge, they would always fight for their future. They would rebuild, stronger than ever before, and they would never forget the sacrifice that had made their survival possible. The final showdown had come to an end, and Earth had emerged victorious.